Welcome. This is the ISO 13485 Executive Decision Brief, produced by Management Systems International. If you're watching this, you've been asked, or have chosen, to understand what ISO 13485 is and whether your organization should pursue it. This briefing is designed to give you exactly that, a clear, leadership-level understanding of what the standard requires, what it means for your organization, and what the next step looks like. Let's get into it. Why medical device organizations are acting now. The first question any executive reasonably asks is, why now? For medical device organizations, the honest answer is that ISO 13485 certification is not optional. It is a prerequisite for operating in virtually every regulated medical device market in the world. Organizations in this space face pressure from four specific directions. First, FDA and regulatory requirements. ISO 13485 aligns directly with the FDA's Quality Management System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, now harmonized as the QMSR. Without a certified QMS, U.S. market access is at risk. Second, EU MDR and IVDR compliance. CE marking under the European Medical Device Regulation requires a certified quality management system. ISO 13485 is the standard accepted by all European notified bodies. Third, supply chain qualification. OEMs, contract manufacturers, and healthcare system partners routinely require ISO 13485 certification from their suppliers as a condition of doing business. And fourth, global market access. ISO 13485 is recognized in over 100 countries, including Canada, Japan, Australia, and Brazil. One certified system opens multiple markets. The bottom line? ISO 13485 is a regulatory prerequisite for operating in the global medical device market, not a discretionary initiative. What ISO 13485 actually is. Before going further, it's worth being clear about what this standard is and what it isn't, because there are common misconceptions that can lead to delays or misdirected decisions. ISO 13485 is a QMS standard specific to medical device design, manufacture, and supply. It is focused on regulatory compliance, risk management, and documented control. And it is required for FDA registration, CE marking, and global regulatory submissions. That's what it is. What it is not. It is not a product testing or clinical validation requirement. Those are separate regulatory obligations. It is not FDA clearance or CE marking itself. The QMS is the system that supports the submissions that lead to clearance and marking. And it is not an operational redesign of your device development process. Think of ISO 13485 as the governance framework that demonstrates to regulators, customers, and auditors that your organization has the systems in place to consistently design, produce, and deliver safe, effective medical devices. It's the foundation on which all other regulatory activities rest. Now let's talk about what happens if an organization chooses to delay. In the medical device space, the consequences of not having a certified quality management system are more severe than in most other industries. There are four consistent risks. First, loss of market access. Without ISO 13485, an organization simply cannot legally sell Class 1, 2, or 3 devices in FDA-regulated EU MDR or most international markets. This is not a competitive disadvantage. It is a market access barrier. Second, contract disqualification. OEMs and healthcare supply chains routinely disqualify non-certified suppliers before a conversation begins. Third, regulatory action. Organizations without formal quality systems are significantly more vulnerable to FDA warning letters, import alerts, and in serious cases, consent decrees. These are expensive, disruptive, and public. And fourth, the cost and disruption of late adoption. Building a quality system under regulatory pressure is consistently more expensive and more disruptive than building one on a planned timeline. The statement at the bottom of this slide is worth carrying. In medical devices, regulatory non-compliance is not a competitive risk. It is a market access barrier. That distinction matters when framing the decision before your leadership team. This slide is particularly important for understanding why ISO 13485 is the right standard, and why it matters now. ISO 13485 operates at the intersection of the three major regulatory frameworks your organization is most likely to encounter. In the United States, the FDA's Quality Management System Regulation, which replaces 21 CFR Part 820, is now substantially harmonized with ISO 13485. Certification to ISO 13485 provides direct regulatory alignment with FDA expectations and simplifies both initial registration and ongoing compliance. In Europe, CE marking under the EU Medical Device Regulation and the In Vitro Diagnostic Regulation requires a certified quality management system. ISO 13485 is accepted by every notified body operating under EU MDR, making certification a direct path to European market access. Globally, ISO 13485 is recognized by regulatory authorities in over 100 countries, including Health Canada, Japan's PMDA, Australia's TGA, and Brazil's Anvisa. One certified system provides the documented foundation required for regulatory submissions across multiple markets. One note for organizations already certified to ISO 9001. You have a significant structural head start. ISO 13485 shares the same high-level structure, meaning your leadership processes, audit infrastructure, and management review cycle can all be extended rather than rebuilt. ISO 13485 adds the medical device-specific controls on top of a framework your team already understands. ISO 13485, 2016 version, is really, for the most part, ISO 9001, 2008 version. What implementation actually requires? Executives sometimes assume that implementing ISO 13485 means rebuilding product development from scratch, conducting clinical trials, or making significant capital investments. This slide addresses that directly. What ISO 13485 actually requires is executive sponsorship and documented management commitment, a risk-based approach to design, production, and post-market processes, controlled documentation, records, and change management systems, an integration of the QMS into existing device development and operations and review cycles, an allocation of quality time for the development of the overarching procedures that addresses all of the SHALs, and to make reference to any existing relatable work instructions. What it does not require: developing new product development processes from scratch, conducting clinical trials or preparing regulatory submissions, or shutting down operations or making changes to your product lines. The system is built around your organization and your products as they exist today. The work is in documenting, structuring, and governing what you're already doing, and identifying where regulatory and quality risks need to be managed more formally. Why organizations choose ISO 13485. Let's step back from the compliance framing for a moment, because organizations that implement ISO 13485 well tend to experience benefits that go well beyond meeting regulatory minimums. 4 outcomes show up consistently: Regulatory market access. A certified QMS is the direct path to FDA registration, CE marking, and global device registration. Without it, these pathways are closed. Audit and inspection readiness. Organizations with a well-implemented quality system are significantly better prepared for notified body audits, FDA inspections, and customer quality audits. The system produces the evidence that auditors expect to see. Risk-based quality culture. ISO 13485 requires a systematic approach to managing risk across design, production, and post-market activities. Organizations that internalize this approach make better product decisions and catch problems earlier. And competitive positioning. ISO 13485 certification is required by healthcare OEMs, group purchasing organizations, and global device supply chains. Certification is a qualifying factor, not just a differentiator. The closing thought on this slide is an important one for executives. ISO 13485 is the foundation of regulatory credibility for every medical device organization. It is not about achieving regulatory perfection. It is about demonstrating that you have the systems to consistently design and deliver safe, effective devices. Role of top management. This slide is directed specifically at executive leadership because ISO 13485 has clear and non-negotiable expectations about the role of top management, and regulators hold leadership directly accountable. Executive leadership is responsible for 4 things under ISO 13485: setting the quality policy, regulatory commitment, and organizational intent for the QMS, defining the QMS scope, assigning responsibility, and allocating resources, establishing quality policy and measurable quality objectives that align with regulatory requirements, and reviewing system performance via the management review, CAPA trends, and compliance accountability at the management level. Usually, a chartering committee is established to lead the development. The note at the bottom of this slide is critical. ISO 13485 cannot be delegated as a documentation exercise. Regulators hold leadership accountable. This is not a standard where executive sign-off is sufficient. FDA inspectors and notified body auditors will ask leadership direct questions about quality policy, resource allocation, and management review. The answers need to reflect genuine engagement. This is not unusual among ISO standards, but in the medical device space, the regulatory stakes make visible leadership commitment especially important. Leadership decision considerations. We're now at the decision point of the briefing. Before recommending a next step, there are 4 questions worth sitting with as a leadership team. First, does your organization require FDA registration, CE marking, or international regulatory submissions for your devices? If yes, ISO 13485 is not optional. The question is only about timing. Second, would delay risk warning letters, import restrictions, or loss of contract opportunities? The regulatory consequences of non-compliance in the medical device space are severe and public. Third, does ISO 13485 align with your organization's device portfolio and growth markets? For most medical device manufacturers and suppliers, the alignment is direct and unambiguous. And fourth, is your leadership team prepared to commit to a regulatory quality management system, not just as a project, but as a permanent operational commitment? The framing on this slide is intentional. For medical device organizations, the question is when to certify, not whether. The decision before you today is whether you want to move on your timeline with a strategic foundation in place or under regulatory or customer pressure later. Implementation timeline. So, what does implementation actually look like? This slide gives you a clear picture of the typical path from decision to registration. The full timeline for ISO 13485 is approximately 6 to 9 months, organized into 5 phases, followed by ongoing activities. The timeline is somewhat longer than ISO 9001 because of the additional regulatory documentation and risk management requirements specific to medical devices. Phase 1 is the kickoff and strategic planning, roughly 3 weeks. MSI conducts a facilitated strategic planning session to shape the QMS framework within your specific regulatory context, including the markets you serve and the device classifications you produce. This is what we are offering in the later slides. Phase 2 is documentation development, approximately 8 weeks. Your QMS manual, device file configured procedures, not all are alike for all companies, risk management documentation, and all required ISO 13485 documented information are developed. This is recommended to be accomplished through a series of 3 to 5 interviews with the appropriate departments based on the subject requirements being addressed. This phase can be expedited if selected as a priority. This is the critical path phase. Document review and approval by your team is the primary driver of schedule. Phase 3 is training and implementation, 6 to 8 weeks. All employees are to attend ISO 13485 overview training, and the system is put into practice across all affected functions, including design control, production, and post-market activities. By the same group sequence of interviews, the implementation effort is applied. The system is put into effect across affected functions. Phase 4 covers internal audits and management review, 2 to 4 weeks. Your internal audit program is completed. Management reviews the system's performance, and corrective and preventive actions from the audit are addressed. Phase 5 is the audit process, approximately 5 to 6 weeks total, including the scope audit 30 days prior, and then the 3 to 5 day, all depends on size and complexity, registration audit conducted by an ANAB-accredited third-party certification body. Your selected registrar provides a proposal for this in advance. Recommended to ask for proposals after completion of documentation. One important note: organizations already certified to ISO 9001 typically complete this path at the lower end of the range because the management system infrastructure and organizational culture are already in place. Implementation roadmap. This slide provides a visual version of that same roadmap, showing the flow of milestones from kickoff through to certification and into ongoing compliance activities. You can reference this as a planning tool when discussing timing with your team. Propose next step. QMS Strategic Planning Session. Which brings us to the proposed next step. We are not recommending a gap assessment. In our experience, gap assessments tend to produce a task list, and a task list approach to ISO 13485 leads to a system that is built around checking regulatory boxes rather than around your organization's actual device portfolio, regulatory markets, and operating model. In the medical device space, that kind of brittle system creates risk rather than reducing it. Instead, we recommend beginning with a QMS Strategic Planning Session. This is a facilitated engagement designed to build your ISO 13485 quality management strategy from the ground up, holistically, with leadership involved, and integrated with your specific regulatory context. The structure is straightforward. 1 day of preparation by MSI, reviewing your device portfolio, regulatory markets, and any existing quality systems. 1 full day on site with your leadership team to work through scope, regulatory context, QMS strategy, and objectives together. And a half-day follow-up in which MSI delivers written outputs, a QMS strategic framework, implementation roadmap, regulatory alignment plan, and resource plan. The investment is $3,250, 2.5 days at $1,300 per day. What happens after the session? Your leadership team has a clear regulatory strategy, a structured implementation roadmap, and full organizational alignment. Implementation begins from a position of clarity, not from a list of compliance tasks assigned to whoever happens to be available. Continue to choose MSI to lead the remaining phases through our SurePath solution. We provide a customized proposal. all the way through coordinating with the registrar and being at your certifications audits. Recommendation and next step. The final slide brings this together. For organizations that manufacture, design, or supply medical devices, or that require FDA registration, CE marking, or international regulatory access, proceeding with ISO 13485 is strategically sound and increasingly required. The recommended next step is to authorize a QMS strategic planning session and then proceed with full implementation from a clear regulatory and strategic foundation. To schedule your session or to learn more about MSI's SurePath program and ongoing implementation support, reach out to us at msi-international.com or call 888-914-9141. Thank you for your time. We look forward to working with your organization.
My name is Diana Lin, and I'm the founder of Management Systems International, development of all of our solutions. For over 2 decades, MSI has helped organizations like yours build management systems that are not just certifiable, but genuinely useful to the business. If what you've heard today resonates, I'd welcome the conversation. Whether you're ready to schedule your EMS strategic planning session or simply want to talk through where your organization stands, we're easy to reach. Visit us at msi-international.com, call us at 888-9149-141, or send us an email at info@msi-international.com. You'll also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and our other social channels. At MSI, our focus is simple: rapidly multiplying our customers' value. We look forward to doing that for you.